My name is Luis Navarro, 28-year-old from Chandler, Arizona. They said my mother slipped. That it was an accident. For 12 years, I believed them until a hidden journal, a late-night confession, and a house full of lies dragged me back to the one place I swore I'd never return. Now I know the truth. And it's darker than I ever imagined. This is the story of how my family tried to bury the past, but they didn't count on me digging it back up. I hadn't heard Mia's voice in almost 3 years. Not since I left Chandler for good, trying to put hundreds of miles between myself and the Navarro name. I was halfway through grading finals at the community college in Flagstaff when the phone buzzed. Flashing her name like a ghost rising from the past, "Luis," she said. "You need to come home." My heart stilled. Mia wasn't the type to reach out casually. She didn't call to check in or swap updates about the weather. If she was calling, something was wrong. "They're selling the house," she said, voice low. "Your dad, Santiago, Isabel, they're clearing it out this weekend. Everything's going." My stomach dropped. "Wait, our house?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. "The one on Tremaine?" "Yes. And they're doing it fast. No notice, no family meeting. Just, gone." She paused. "Luis, I think they're trying to bury her. For good." She didn't have to say her name. I knew who she meant. My mother, Veronica Navarro, died when I was 16. The official story was a slip on the stairs. A tragic accident. But nothing about it had ever felt right. Not the bruises I'd seen days before. Not the icy silence from my father after. And not the way the coroner's report disappeared when I asked for it my senior year. I was the only one who ever asked questions. And that made me the enemy. "They're throwing everything out. Photos, papers, her books, everything that ever belonged to her," Mia said. "I found your old baseball glove in a donation box with her jewelry." A tightness wrapped around my chest. The house on East Tremaine wasn't just a house. It was the last place I saw her alive. The last place she smiled at me, really smiled. Before her face started looking more like a mask. Before she vanished down those stairs, I had left Chandler hoping time would dull the ache. But it hadn't. If anything, distance only sharpened the edges. And now they wanted to erase her completely. "I know you said you'd never come back," Mia whispered. "But if you ever wanted answers, this might be your only chance." I stared out my window. Snow capped the trees here, clean and quiet. Chandler would be the opposite: dry heat, familiar roads, old ghosts. And that house. That damned house. I closed my laptop without finishing the last paper. My hands trembled as I grabbed my keys. Maybe I didn't know what I'd find back there, but one thing was certain: they might have gotten away with killing her truth once. But they weren't going to bury it again, not while I was still breathing. The heat hit me the moment I stepped off the I-10 and into Chandler's thick desert air. June in Arizona had a way of making your lungs feel like they were filling with smoke. But it wasn't the heat that made it hard to breathe, it was the thought of seeing that house again. East Tremaine Street hadn't changed much. Same rusted mailboxes, same brittle yards fighting the sun. But as I pulled into the driveway of our old stucco two-story, a wave of nausea rolled through me. The windows stared back like dead eyes, and the front door, once red, now faded and flaking, looked like it had forgotten what joy was. I stood there for a second before knocking. My knuckles rapped against the door in a rhythm that used to mean I'm home. Now it felt like a warning. Santiago answered. He'd always been bigger than me, but now he looked older too, thicker around the middle, stress carved into his brow. The moment he saw me, his face turned to stone. "What the hell are you doing here?" he asked, stepping halfway into the doorway like a bouncer guarding a club. "I came to say goodbye to the house," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And to see what you're burying along with it." His jaw clenched. "We don't need your drama, Luis. You left. Remember?" Before I could respond, Isabel appeared behind him. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her dark hair pulled into a loose bun. Her arms crossed tight across her chest. She met my gaze for a split second, then looked away. "Mia said you were digging through Mom's things," I said, glancing past Santiago. "Where are they?" Santiago scoffed. "Trash. Donation boxes. She's been gone 12 years. It's time we moved on. But something was wrong. The air in the house smelled off, not just old, but spoiled. Like secrets left out too long. "I'll be quick," I muttered, brushing past him before he could stop me. Inside, the living room was half-packed, boxes stacked high, furniture wrapped in plastic. But it was the photos missing from the walls that struck me hardest. The family portrait that used to hang by the staircase, the one where Mom held my shoulder gently, that was gone. Her books from the den? Cleared. Even the framed rosary she hung in the hallway had vanished. "You erased her," I whispered. "No," Santiago said coldly. "We're just finally moving on. Something you should have done years ago." I looked up at the staircase, where she fell. Where she died. And I swore I could still see the outline of her body at the base. I wasn't welcome here. That much was clear, but I didn't come for hugs, I came for the truth. And I could feel it, something was still here, hiding in the walls, begging to be found. Later that night, long after Santiago had slammed the door behind me and Isabel had retreated into silence, I sat alone in my truck parked 3 blocks away, engine off, windows down. Chandler nights weren't quiet, they hummed with cicadas, barking dogs, the occasional passing car, but it was quieter than what echoed inside my head. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Mia: "Meet me at the old canal. Bring a flashlight." She always had a flair for the dramatic. I didn't argue. 15 minutes later, I stood near the edge of the dry canal bed, flashlight in one hand, heart thudding in the other. Mia appeared from the shadows like she'd been waiting for years instead of minutes. Her face was pale, her eyes burning. She didn't say anything. Just handed me a small, zippered tote bag. "What is it?" I asked. Her answer was a whisper: "Proof." I opened the bag and pulled out a leather-bound book, worn at the edges, the initials VN etched faintly into the corner. My chest tightened, Mom's handwriting stared back at me in looping, careful script. The first page just said, "If you're reading this, I didn't make it out." I sat down right there on the dirt and started flipping through the pages under the beam of my flashlight. Each entry was a time capsule. Days where she cataloged everything: Raul's moods, the bruises she covered with long sleeves, the money she'd started to squirrel away in a secret account. The way Santiago had started mimicking their father. The nights she locked her door and held Isabel close until morning. "He's planning something. He's paranoid. I think he knows I'm leaving soon." Some entries were in Spanish. Others in a kind of shorthand she must have made up. But the pain in her words was unmistakable: "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident." The journal had been wrapped in plastic, duct-taped, and stuffed behind the insulation in the garage wall. "Mia found it when she was helping box up old tools. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, voice cracking. "I wasn't sure if I could trust anyone," she said. "But then you came back. And I remembered what she used to say. Louis sees things." I closed the book and held it to my chest like a lifeline. Everything I'd buried, every suspicion I'd forced down for 12 years, it was all real. She was trying to leave. She was afraid. And someone made sure she never got out. "I need copies of this," I muttered. "Every page." Mia nodded. "I figured you'd say that." Already done. The Navarro name might have built half this town, but it was built on a lie. And I was done being quiet. They didn't just kill my mother, they murdered her, and now, I had her voice. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the back of my truck at a gas station parking lot, the journal open on my lap, reading under the dim yellow light of the overhead lamps. It felt like she was whispering in my ear, each word sharper than the last. Page by page, the picture became clearer and more horrifying. Every entry was a memory I'd buried. But now, they clawed back with vengeance. April 9th, he got angry when I picked up the phone. He thinks I talked to people behind his back. I only called the pharmacy. He shoved me. The bruise is on my hip now. I remembered that night. I was 9. She limped for 2 days but told me she slipped in the laundry room. Raul made a joke at dinner about clumsy wives. Santiago laughed. I laughed too, because back then, I didn't know what else to do. Now I knew. May 3rd, Isabel heard him yelling through the walls. I told her it was okay. I lied to her again. I feel like I lie all day just to get through the night. How many times did she lie just to protect us? To protect me, I flipped through the entries like they were evidence at a trial. Some were smudged with tears. Others had marks pressed down words like she was writing with all the strength she had left. She had kept a meticulous log of every threat, every bruise, every twisted manipulation Raoul used to control her and us. Suddenly, I could hear his voice again. Don't ask questions. Boys don't cry. You want to end up weak like her? Say it never happened. And I had said it never happened. For years. I pretended not to see. I excused the yelling, the smashed plates, the locked doors, but her words in this journal were unrelenting. June 14th, I took out another $200 and put it in the box under the floorboard. It's not enough to start over, but I'll find a way. I have to. For Luis. For ISA. The floorboard, she was planning to run. She had a plan. And someone found out. My fingers trembled as I turned the last page I could bear. Her voice was no longer a memory. It was a scream wrapped in ink. And I was just now hearing it, too late to stop what happened. But not too late to do something about it. I stared at my reflection in the truck mirror. Same eyes as her. Same fear, now hardened into rage. I failed her once, but now I had her voice, and I wasn't letting it be silenced again. The Navarro name meant something in Chandler. For decades, Raul Navarro's company, Navarro Foundations Concrete, was stamped into sidewalks, school parking lots, and suburban cul-de-sacs. His trucks were always spotless, his crews always on time. People shook his hand and thanked him for keeping the city growing, but that was the surface. After reading through Mom's journal again, especially the entries about Raul's paranoia, I started to wonder, what if the abuse wasn't just behind closed doors? What if the business was part of it? I started with public records. The city's permit database was a nightmare, but I dug through it at the Chandler Civic Center, flipping through digitized files and handwritten notes. That's when I noticed something strange. Projects filed under different company names, all LLCs with addresses that traced back to the same P.O. box Raul used. Some were just one letter off, Navarrete Cement Company. Or RN Commercial Pouring. All had contracts approved quickly. Too quickly. No competitive bidding, no environmental checks. Just rubber stamps. I ran the names through the state's business registry. Most of the companies didn't list owners. Just attorneys. Or shell core with international addresses. The deeper I went, the dirtier it got. There were projects that had been completed on paper but never touched. A public park that was still just an empty lot. A retirement home listed as 80% complete that was nothing but steel framing and sagging fencing. I drove out to the site of a failed housing development called El Valle Estates. It was supposed to be a gated community, 24 homes, a playground, even a man-made lake. But all I found were crumbling slabs of concrete, sun-bleached porta-potties, and rebar poking through the earth like bones. That's when I saw it, a concrete slab near the edge of the property, stamped in the corner, Navarro FDN 14. Something twisted in my gut. This wasn't just fraud. This was a graveyard of promises. Of money siphoned through hollow shells. Of workers likely underpaid, permits forged, corners cut. And beneath all of it, my father. I snapped photos of everything. The company stamps. The permits. The rusted signs. Then I called an old professor of mine from Flagstaff who specialized in financial forensics. I didn't give my name, just told him what I'd found. He said I wasn't imagining things. This smells like money laundering, he told me. And if your mom wrote about it, that means she knew too much. And that's when it clicked. She wasn't just trying to escape Raul's fists, she was trying to escape his empire. She'd seen something, or maybe she had proof of something, that could have brought it all down, and for that, he couldn't let her live. The Navarro legacy wasn't concrete, it was a tomb. I hadn't heard from Isabel in days. After the tension at the house, I figured she was just doing what she always did, stay quiet, stay invisible, let the storm pass. That was her survival tactic. I never blamed her for it, but that night, around 1:30 a.m., there was a soft knock at the motel door. I opened it to find her standing there, arms wrapped tightly around herself, hoodie drawn up like armor. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked like she hadn't slept since I'd come back to Chandler. Can I come in? She whispered. I stepped aside without saying a word. She sat at the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched forward, fingers trembling. I didn't press her. I just waited. Finally, she spoke. I read the journal. She said. I froze. I saw it in Mia's room. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. Silence stretched between us until it cracked under the weight of her next words. I saw him do it, Luis. I turned slowly. What? She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. That night. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard them yelling. I crept out of bed and sat at the top of the stairs. Her voice cracked, and I felt something icy crawl up my spine. He shoved her, she said. It wasn't an accident. She was trying to leave. She had a small bag, like she was finally going to run. I swallowed hard, while rising in my throat. She said something about files. Papers she was going to send to someone, Isabel went on. Dad kept yelling, "You think you're gonna ruin me?" Then, he pushed her. Just one shove. Her hands covered her mouth. She hit her head on the landing. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just sat there. Frozen. I knelt in front of her, gently pulling her hands away from her face. Why didn't you say anything? Tears spilled over. Because he saw me. A chill wrapped around my chest. He looked up, right at me. Didn't say a word. Just stared. And then walked away. Like nothing happened. I went back to bed and pretended it was a dream. I've been pretending ever since. I hugged her then, something I hadn't done in years. She sobbed against my shoulder. I thought if I stayed quiet, he'd leave me alone, she whispered. But reading her words. Reading that journal, it broke something open. I held her tighter. You're not alone anymore. We're going to make this right. She looked at me, eyes steady now. I'll testify, she said. Whatever you need. I'm done hiding. And just like that, the silence that had ruled our family for over a decade began to crack. Santiago was already waiting in the driveway when I pulled up to the house on Tremaine. Arms crossed. Sunglasses on. Like a sentry guarding a crumbling castle, you've been sniffing around again, he said as I stepped out of the truck. Mia told me you've been digging into Dad's books, calling people. I'm not sniffing, I said, holding the leather-bound journal in one hand. I'm exposing. There's a difference. He scoffed. You don't know what you're doing, Luis. You think Mom was some kind of saint? She was unstable. Always paranoid, always running off at the mouth. Dad kept us together when she couldn't. I took a step closer. She wasn't paranoid. She was terrified. And for good reason. She was documenting everything. The abuse. The shell companies. The money laundering. You think this journal's just full of her grocery lists? He shifted, but didn't flinch. Even if it's real, nobody cares. That was 12 years ago. Isabel remembers, I said, voice rising. She saw him push her. She was at the top of the stairs. She's ready to testify. For a moment, Santiago just stared. Then his mask cracked. You little piece of, he lunged, his fist hit my jaw before I could dodge. I stumbled back into the side of the truck, tasting copper. My reflexes kicked in and I shoved him off, hard. He staggered, then came at me again, teeth bared. That's when I heard it, a click. Isabel's voice rang out, clear and cold. He killed our mother. We both froze. She stood at the edge of the driveway, holding up her phone, recording everything. Her hand trembled, but her voice did not. Tell him the truth, Santiago, she said. Tell him you helped cover it up. That you threatened me if I ever spoke about it. His face went pale. ISA, turn that off. Right now. No, she said, stepping closer. You can't scare me anymore. I wiped the blood from my mouth and stared at my brother, this man I once admired. Now just another part of the rot. You were supposed to protect her, I said. Instead, you helped bury her. Santiago looked between us, chest heaving, but said nothing. No apology. No denial. Just silence. Later that night, I sent copies of the recording and scanned pages of the journal, every detailed. Dated entry to the Chandler Police Department and the State Attorney's Office. I didn't hide my name. I wanted them to know who was blowing the lid off the Navarro family. Within 24 hours, everything changed, and for the first time in 12 years, I could feel the house on Tremaine trembling, not from violence, but from truth. It happened on a Thursday morning, the kind of hot, windless Arizona day where even the lizards don't move unless they have to. I was parked across the street from the house on Tremaine, windows cracked, heart pounding like a war drum. Isabel sat beside me, silent, staring straight ahead. Her phone buzzed in her lap, Mia texting updates from downtown. Then we heard it. Sirens, 3 black and white cruisers rolled up first, followed by an unmarked sedan. A patrol SUV blocked the driveway. Uniformed officers stepped out fast, no hesitation, weapons holstered but hands ready. A man in a dark suit, the lead detective, I assumed, strode toward the house with a warrant in hand. A moment later, the front door creaked open. Raul Navarro stood in the frame, back straight, face unreadable. He still wore his work clothes, creased slacks, pressed polo, company logo stitched into the chest like a badge of honor. For a second, he looked like the same man who used to bark orders at his crew and wave to neighbors like a king surveying his land. But then the cuffs went on, they turned him around, hands behind his back. He didn't fight. Didn't speak. Just stared straight ahead with that cold, hard expression he always wore when he was about to punish someone, except this time, it wasn't me. Or Isabel. Or Mom. This time, he was the one being dragged out. A second team swarmed the garage, seizing boxes, hard drives, folders from the office Raul kept meticulously organized. 2 officers entered the backyard. Photographing the space beneath the old shed, the one Mom always kept locked. I'd told the detective about it, about what the journal implied. If anything was hidden there, they'd find it. Santiago wasn't home when it happened, but they picked him up an hour later at the concrete yard. He came out shouting, demanding to see a lawyer. But the agents didn't flinch. The charges? Obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, and accessory after the fact. Word spread fast. By sundown, our family name was plastered across local news. Navarro patriarch arrested in cold case murder. Business mogul behind Chandler construction empire faces fraud, homicide charges. Mia texted again. They're calling it the Navarro scandal. It's everywhere. The neighbors peeked through blinds. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. I always thought Raul was too polished. Did you hear what they did to their own mother? Luis Navarro, wasn't he the youngest? That night, I walked past the house one last time. Empty now. Quiet. Police tape fluttered across the front steps like a final warning, and as I stood there, I didn't feel pride or victory. I felt grief, but beneath it, something else, justice. We hadn't just exposed our father, we'd shattered the illusion. The house on East Tremaine was silent now, no more yelling. No slamming doors. No shadow of Raul's footsteps stalking the hallway. Just sunlight filtering through dusty blinds, and the kind of stillness that made your ears ring. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by empty walls and bare floors. Everything had been cleared out, evidence for the state, junk hauled to the curb, memories sealed in boxes. Even the photos were gone, but the air felt lighter. Like the house was finally exhaling after holding its breath for 12 years, I walked out back to the garden. Or what used to be one. It was nothing more than dry soil now, cracked and hardened from years of neglect. But I remembered what it used to look like: rows of lavender, rosemary, marigolds. Her favorites. Mom spent hours here, hands in the dirt, humming to herself in Spanish. She said things grew better when you sang to them. It was the only place she ever looked truly at peace. Mia met me there, her arms full of seed packets. Isabel followed with gardening tools clutched to her chest. We didn't say much. We just knelt in the dirt and started digging, turning over the hard earth, pulling out old roots. Letting it breathe. It wasn't just a garden anymore, it was a beginning. Later that week, we filed the paperwork for the nonprofit. A foundation in her name, Veronica's Voice. A place for women in danger. A safe house. A hotline. Legal help. Therapy. All of it. Mia used her connections in social work. Isabel, quiet but determined, offered to manage the operations. I used every contact I had from school and beyond to secure early donations. We launched quietly. No big press release. No ribbon cutting, but within days, the calls started coming: women who felt trapped, kids who saw too much, husbands looking for help for their wives, survivors who were still learning how to speak. Mom's voice was no longer silent. It echoed through every email, every intake form, every tearful thank you message. We kept one thing from the old house: her rosary, found in the shed beneath a false panel, a place Raoul must have forgotten. It hangs now in the center of the foundation's main office, beside a framed page from her journal. If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. But maybe you can. I look at it every day, and I remember that this wasn't just about exposing Raoul. It wasn't just about justice, it was about her. The woman who tried to save us long before we were ready to save ourselves. She didn't get to run. She didn't get to bloom, but now, through us, through every survivor she'll help, she grows. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about the secrets we bury behind closed doors, don't let Veronica's voice be the only one heard. Like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can hear stories that matter.